No one would ever stay at a dump like this. If anyone actually did, it'd have to be a thrill seeker or just as down and out as this place. Henry, don't say things like that in front of the guests. A mocking laugh echoed through the hall of the Irving Inn, where I was staying. The man called Henry sneered, then shot a disdainful look at Rebecca, the innkeeper. Guests? Ha! There's nobody here, Rebecca. This is as good as it gets with your so-called skills. Face it, this is your reality. After spewing his insults, Henry left with a loud, satisfied laugh, clearly pleased with the frustration on Rebecca's face. Rebecca's hands trembled slightly as she stood there, her beloved inn viciously insulted. It's all over. Even though I'd only been here a few days, I could feel their pain. No, it's not over. Trust me, let me handle it. Then a few months later. For everyone involved with Irving Inn, including myself, our lives were about to change drastically. Because the truth is, my real identity is. My name is Samuel. I work as a concierge at a well-known hotel in the city. My guiding principle is to provide service with genuine warmth. The senior staff member who was responsible for training me at this hotel repeatedly taught me to offer hospitality from the customer's perspective. Following that training, I am now guiding my juniors in the same way. However, since Mr. Keller took over as the new manager a few years ago, there's been a growing emphasis on profit and efficiency. Many people left in opposition to his ways. Now, those who remain are mostly people who say yes to Mr. Keller's policies. In that environment, my opposition to Mr. Keller made me a complete outlier. Today, yet again, Mr. Keller and I clashed over his push for unreasonable measures in the name of profit. He'd clearly grown tired of my constant challenges over the years. Finally, he said, if you can't follow my way, you're welcome to leave any time. No matter what I said, the management approach wouldn't change. Not a single ally in the workplace. Above all, I couldn't stand Mr. Keller's disregard for both employees and guests, so I left the hotel. Staying there would only drive me further from the passion and values I hold dear. I felt no regret about my decision to leave. Still, walking away from a place filled with memories after so many years stirred some sentimentality. So, I decided to take a trip to clear my mind. Whenever I had time off, I'd visit various accommodations domestically and abroad for both learning and relaxation. More often than not, I opted for traditional Japanese inns that offered a refreshing change from the usual hotel environment. I remembered an inn I'd had my eye on for some time and checked its website. Surrounded by nature, enjoy a moment of tranquility at Irving Inn. The homepage featured serene images of the inn, renowned hot springs, dishes made with local ingredients, and the area's breathtaking natural beauty. Just looking at the photos lifted my spirits. The innkeeper and staff members all had warm, welcoming smiles in the photos. Irving Inn was known for its excellent hospitality, and I'd been keeping an eye on it since last year, hoping to visit and learn from them someday. Though I was no longer working, I eagerly went through the booking process, looking forward to my stay. A few days later, I arrived in the town where Irving Inn was located. Recently, the town had been developing as a tourist destination, with many people visiting, especially on weekends, bringing a lively energy to the area. Since the inn was nestled up in the mountains, the hustle and bustle gradually faded as I approached, replaced by the lush green of the trees and the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves. Even this short journey was enough to bring a sense of escape, and I felt myself completely relaxing. Upon arrival, I saw a sturdy, well-built inn. It had a slightly worn look, but the architecture reflected a deep history, harmonizing beautifully with the surrounding nature. The thought of spending a few days here made me smile with anticipation. I walked lightly through the entrance and headed to the front desk. However, the staff member standing there didn't notice my arrival, her attention entirely on the paperwork she was intensely reading. A bit confused, I tried to get her attention. Oh. Yes. A guest. I'm so sorry. Welcome to Irving Inn. The young woman at the desk bowed hurriedly, clearly flustered. She seemed new, as her speech and movements were a bit unsteady. While she sorted out my check-in, handling paperwork, and checking the computer, I looked around. The other staff members rushing past the entrance appeared equally busy. Their movements were a bit awkward, and a few looked like they might trip at any moment. A senior staff member was offering guidance, helping them with their tasks. Yet no one seemed to notice me at the front desk, and they all hurried off. I thought this place was known for its hospitality, but this is a bit. I could feel their earnestness, which was endearing, but I wondered if I could truly relax in such a hectic atmosphere. As I was pondering this, a problem arose. What? The room I reserved is already occupied? I am terribly sorry. The young woman at the desk looked on the verge of tears, bowing repeatedly. It was a classic case of double booking. This is unexpected. I sincerely apologize. More than anger, I felt disappointment. I had been so looking forward to my stay. As the staff member kept apologizing, someone hurried towards us. I apologize sincerely for the inconvenience our oversight has caused. Recognizing her face from the website, I realized this was Rebecca, the innkeeper. The front desk staff must have alerted her as soon as the double booking was discovered. Despite hurrying over, Rebecca didn't appear the least bit flustered. Her neatly styled black hair had a beautiful luster, and she wore a refined lavender kimono that suited her perfectly. Her manner was gentle, with graceful gestures and refined language that made a strong impression. Is there any other room available? I was really looking forward to staying here, so I'd love to if possible. At my request, she quickly moved to the front desk, checking the reservation status. I'm terribly sorry. All our rooms are booked for today, so we're unable to offer another room at this time. With that, Rebecca once again bowed deeply. The female employee standing next to her also follows Rebecca's lead, bowing along with her. Ah, I see. That's disappointing. Oh, sorry. Rebecca's response deepens my disappointment, and I can't help but let my true feelings slip out. Seeing the obvious dejection on my face, Rebecca hesitantly speaks up to me. Considering it's a holiday, I expect nearby accommodations are likely fully booked as well. So, if you'd be willing, my home is just next to the inn. As an apology, we'd like to offer our unused guesthouse to you at no charge, along with full meals and service. I was taken aback by the unexpected offer. I was hesitant about staying in a private residence, even if it was a guesthouse, and tried to refuse. But Rebecca insisted, saying, I can't bear to let a guest who was looking forward to staying here leave disappointed. The young woman at the desk also bowed multiple times. And I couldn't refuse. Wow! This room is amazing. I'm glad you like it. Since Rebecca had other guests to attend to, her daughter, Heather, showed me to the room. It was beautifully maintained, with a classic interior as lovely as the inn's rooms. Since it was right next to the inn, the view from the window was likely just as stunning as it would have been from an actual guest room. Since the guest house was a bit removed from both the main house and the inn, I didn't have to worry about noise or overhearing conversations. Heather, who had shown me to my room, explained the meal schedule, the hot springs' hours, and other details. In her service, I could see traces of her mother, Rebecca. She answered my questions smoothly, with a warm smile and thoughtful gestures that put me at ease. Even as a fellow hospitality professional, I found Heather's service remarkable, with many things worth emulating. Which made me wonder. Both Rebecca and her daughter Heather possessed such high-level service skills, so why did the other staff, especially the woman at the front desk, seem so inexperienced? Was it simply a lack of training, or were they all new hires? Either way, the disparity in staff skill levels is so wide that it risks leading to disappointing reviews for the inn. My honest impression was that it's a shame, given how many good qualities the place has. Lost in thought, I realized Heather had finished her explanation. Once again, I apologize for today's inconvenience. I hope you'll enjoy your stay here. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to make it even better. Her radiant smile, full of warmth, left me momentarily speechless. Are you all right? Heather looked up at me with a concerned expression. She seemed about my age, with a youthful face and large, sparkling eyes that shone in the sunlight. Her gaze made my face grow warm. Oh, no, I'm fine. Actually, I'm really looking forward to both the hot springs and the food. Thank you. As you can see, our inn is surrounded by mountains, so our menu is mainly focused on local delicacies like wild vegetables, mushrooms, and river fish caught nearby. Our chef's dishes are all delicious, so please enjoy as much as you can. Oh, and of course, our hot springs is one of our prides too. The salt in the water is great for your skin and helps relieve fatigue. So please take your time relaxing in it. And, perhaps due to her enthusiasm, her words lost some of their earlier formality and became a bit more casual. Normally, using such language with a customer would be a no-go, but from Heather's attitude, I could sense her dedication to learning about the inn. And above all, her genuine affection for it. Not only was Heather unstoppable in her talking, but I also found myself smiling naturally as I listened. Oh, I'm so sorry. I got so caught up in talking that I completely left you behind. Once I start talking about the inn, I just can't stop. Even though my mom scolds me about it all the time. Heather looked down, her face turning red with embarrassment. No, not at all. Hearing all that has made me even more excited about my stay. And I can tell how much you love this inn, so it really warms my heart. Do you plan to take over the inn in the future? She relaxed, her face softening at my words. Yes. I love this inn, it's a place very close to my heart. Right now, it's just my mom and me, but my grandparents and father used to work here too. I grew up watching my family and the staff work so hard. It's tough, of course, and as a kid, I sometimes felt lonely. But I'll never forget the look of happiness on their faces when they saw a guest smile. So, I want to follow in my mom's footsteps and become a proper innkeeper who works with our staff to create a place where guests leave with genuine gratitude. That said, I still make lots of mistakes and get scolded by my mom and the senior staff all the time. Heather's bright expression revealed her strong determination to inherit the inn. Watching her, I found myself speaking without thinking. You'll make a great innkeeper, Heather. Ha! Oh, I was just as surprised by my own words as Heather was, judging by her astonished expression. After exchanging glances, we both burst into laughter. Thank you. I'll do my best to make sure you're satisfied with your stay. With a final smile and a slight bow, Heather left the room, saying, "Please don't hesitate to call if you need anything." Heather was in charge of most of my needs during my stay at the guest house. Each time she stopped by, she'd check if I needed anything, and casual conversations would often lead to the two of us laughing, after which she'd hurry back to her duties. Just as Heather had said, I thoroughly enjoyed the excellent food and relaxing hot springs. Now, I stretch out on the prepared bed, lying down with my arms and legs spread wide. Ah, this is perfect. I'm full, the hot springs was great, and enveloped in the warmth of the sun-scented duvet, I closed my eyes. What came to mind was Heather's smile. There was a warmth in her smile, as if she genuinely wanted to make guests feel welcome. Her presence was like spring sunshine, warming the heart. But thinking of that warmth made my heart race, and I felt a blush creeping up my cheeks. Heather, she's really something special. Relieved to be alone, I let the words escape my lips. Her smile flashed through my mind, again and again. I wondered if I'd dream of her tonight. Feeling a bit embarrassed by my own thoughts, I pulled the duvet over my head, trying to hide from them. Before I knew it, I drifted off to sleep, still wrapped in my thoughts of her. The next morning, I got dressed and enjoyed the breakfast delivered to my room. I plan to go sightseeing today, so I head over to the inn staff to ask for recommendations on nearby attractions and must-visit spots. As I arrived at the front desk, I heard loud voices echoing through the quiet morning. What's going on here? My sincerest apologies. The raised voices didn't fit the usual calm of the inn. It sounded like a complaint. Several staff members, including Rebecca and Heather, were bowing deeply before a guest angrily shouting his grievances. I've never stayed somewhere so unpleasant. I'm leaving now. The irate guest stormed past me, each step heavy with frustration. I considered saying something, but before I could decide, Rebecca noticed me watching and came over. I'm so sorry for the disturbance. Is there anything you need? Her tone was as polite and gentle as always, but I could see traces of fatigue on her face. I know it's not my place as a guest, but what happened? I hesitantly asked. Rebecca hesitated for a moment before offering a troubled smile. We received a complaint from that guest just now, but apparently, the guest had claimed I was placed in a subpar room, different from the one I reserved, and the staff had been unhelpful and rude. However, after double-checking, Rebecca found no mistake with the reservation. And none of the staff members who attended to him had behaved improperly. Strange incidents like this have been increasing over the past 6 months. Complaints about things like expired snacks in the room or the private bath being too cold and causing a cold, even though none of them were true. Guests have even walked out or canceled reservations at the last minute. Just recently, someone left a complaint on a booking site about the food we don't even serve. Since then, our reservations have dropped significantly. Heather spoke up, and several other employees chimed in with their own accounts of suspicious occurrences. While such incidents occasionally happen in this business, the frequency of these odd complaints in the past half-year was unusual. Could it be someone's harassing Irving Inn? One of the staff whispered, and everyone fell silent. Glancing at Rebecca, I saw a shadowed expression on her face. I was about to say something when the door swung open with a bang. Everyone turned in unison. Oh my, what a gloomy atmosphere. It's like a funeral in here. The blatantly rude tone made me bristle, but Rebecca immediately stepped forward, facing the newcomer. Henry, what brings you here? From where I stood, I couldn't see Rebecca's face, but her tone was noticeably stiff. Rebecca, another guest left again? How many times does that make it now? I've told you time and time again, you're not up to the task. I've heard all about it. The staff here are incompetent, and the service is abysmal. You're the one who's dragged this inn's once praised reputation for excellent service through the mud. Henry, as he was called, spoke with a smug look on his face. Rebecca listened quietly at first, but quickly countered with a firm tone. Henry, I won't tolerate insults towards our dedicated staff. They work hard for this inn and our guests. You, as an outsider, have no place to speak on this matter. Henry sneered and continued. Working hard isn't enough. Most of your staff are amateurs. You're understaffed and lack any proper training. Who'd want to stay in a place like this? Training shortcomings are my responsibility. But even with a staffing agency, we can't seem to get new hires, which I suspect is because of the strings you've been pulling. Oh, Rebecca, don't make accusations without proof. It's because this low standard and can't manage proper training that no one wants to work or stay here. You'd be better off shutting it down now and selling the land while it's worth something. Look around, everyone else has sided with me. Only a few places remain in this area, yours included. Wouldn't want you and your daughter left out on the street now, would we? Ha ha. Hearing Henry's words, Heather let out a faint sound. Her face had gone pale. She must have only just realized it now. The fact that this inn was being targeted by Henry. Rebecca, standing face to face with Henry, maintained her resolute stance, but I could see her clenched fists trembling slightly. Oh, the young lady wasn't aware? Rebecca's stubbornness is quite the bother. If she doesn't hand over this place soon, it'll delay my plans. But if you continue to be difficult, I might just resort to harsher methods. I have plenty of connections, you know. Watching him leer at Rebecca, I felt something snap inside me. His arrogant attitude, pushing his own agenda without any regard for others, reminded me of my former manager, Mr. Keller. Even though it had only been a day for me, I couldn't stand that Henry was trying to ruin Irving Inn and cause pain to Rebecca and Heather. Is that a threat? Should I go ahead and report your words to the police? Ha! And just who do you think you are? I jumped in suddenly, and it startled Henry. Samuel. Both Rebecca and Heather said my name in unison. I'm a guest staying here. I just happened to be around, but as I said, I could call the police right now and report your threats if that's what you'd prefer. I held my phone in my right hand and stepped toward Henry and Rebecca. Ugh, another guest still here. All right, fine. But make sure to have all the documents ready next time. Throwing out his parting words, Henry wiped sweat from his brow and hurriedly left with heavy, frantic steps. Once the door shut, the now silent entryway was filled with Heather's voice. Samuel. Thank you so much. She took my hand as she spoke. Heather. Really, I didn't do much. My words stumbled out, a mix of modesty and fluster at her holding my hand. At that moment, Rebecca approached us. Samuel, thank you. You really helped us. Rebecca lifted her face and began to tell us the story. According to her, Henry had been pressuring her to give up this land for about a year. It seemed that, as various business proposals aimed to boost tourism around the area, Henry's company joined in, pushing for a large-scale plan to turn this whole area into a resort. With support from some influential backers, Henry grew bolder, targeting nearby inns and shops, including the Irving Inn, with relentless buyouts, using strong-arm tactics whenever necessary to acquire land. Unable to resist Henry's power, most nearby businesses had either closed or relocated, leaving only a handful, including the Irving Inn, still standing. Over the past 6 months, Henry's threats had become more intense. He seemed to have hired people to file fake complaints and orchestrate cancellations, shaking the inn's reputation in an attempt to force them out. "Mom, why didn't you tell us about this? Did you think we weren't dependable enough?" Hearing the truth from Rebecca, Heather's eyes welled up with tears. Rebecca, too, looked pained as she held Heather's hand tightly. "Heather, everyone, I'm so sorry. I just didn't want you to worry. I thought if I handled Henry myself, you could focus on taking care of our guests. But in the end, I only made you worry more. I'm sorry. I'm such an unworthy innkeeper. I'm so sorry." Her face was lowered, but the last words were spoken in a trembling voice. Heather and the other employees in the room were all disheartened, some softly crying. "Maybe it's time to let go. At this rate, I'm just going to keep dragging everyone down." Rebecca whispered these words quietly. "If this goes on, the Irving Inn will disappear." The inn Heather had hoped to carry on. Her dream would be lost. "Hold on, please." Before I knew it, I had raised my voice. Everyone turned to look at me. It's a situation where the place they work might disappear in the near future. Everyone wore an expression of overwhelming anxiety. As I glanced at them, my gaze met Heather's, her cheeks wet with tears. "Samuel." I nod reassuringly toward her as tears gather in her large eyes. Then, I turned back to face Rebecca. "Rebecca, I'm currently unemployed, but I used to work in a hotel. While inns might be a bit different, I have experience and knowledge in hospitality. If you'd allow it, I'd like to help with staff training." Rebecca and Heather exchanged glances. "You know I was really looking forward to staying here, right?" "That's true, but there was another reason. I'd heard great things about the service here, and I really wanted to learn from it myself." I was thrilled to arrive. Though I was surprised by the double booking and all, but I was genuinely impressed by your hospitality, yours and Heather's, and the dedication of all the staff. Despite fewer guests, you all still prioritize warmth and care. I knew this was a place I wanted to enjoy during my stay. And now, I really don't want to see this inn disappear. I kept my true reason, not wanting Heather's dream to be crushed, to myself, but my desire to save the inn was genuine. Hoping my feelings would reach her, I looked directly at Rebecca. Then, other staff members began to speak up. "I don't want this place to close either. I'll keep working hard, so please, Rebecca, don't give up." Hearing these voices, Heather took Rebecca's hand. "Mom, let's protect our home, okay? I'll work harder than ever. Let's all work together. We can't let someone like him win." The other employees joined in with words of encouragement, saying, "We'll do our best." Moved by their words, tears fell from Rebecca's eyes. "Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone." Rebecca closed her eyes for a moment, then looked straight at me. Her eyes were no longer filled with tears, but rather a determined, resolute strength. "Samuel, I apologize for burdening you as our guest, but for the sake of everyone here fighting to save the Irving Inn, could we ask for your help?" "Samuel, please." Rebecca and Heather both bowed simultaneously. The other staff members followed suit, bowing as well. "I may not be able to do much, but I'm one of those who want to protect the Irving Inn too. Please, let's work together." I bowed deeply as well, grateful to be part of this. From that moment, I became one of the allies supporting Irving Inn. With Henry's tactics likely to escalate at any time, We had to raise the inn's revenue to last year's level as quickly as possible. I signed a short-term contract to oversee employee training at the inn. Though hotels and inns have their differences, at the core, the spirit of hospitality and the question of what can we do for our guests remains the same. I focused on these principles during training, helped cover tasks where they were short-staffed, and gathered guest feedback to pass on to Rebecca. Of course, with the new level of expectations, some found it too challenging and left. Among those who left, some engaged in suspicious behavior, like deliberately being rude to customers or attempting to enter restricted areas. It makes me wonder if Henry had somehow been involved. This also suggests that the false complaints, reputation-damaging reviews, and sudden cancellations we've experienced might be part of Henry's influence as well. When I mentioned this to Rebecca, she replied, "It wouldn't surprise me. The dirty tactics he'd been using, there was no way we could lose to someone like him." For Rebecca, Heather, the staff, and everyone who loved this inn as much as I did, we had to reclaim its true reputation. We worked tirelessly together. Aside from training, I reached out to contacts from my previous job, gathering support and promoting the inn through travel bloggers and magazine writers I knew. The dedication to genuine, heartfelt service that I'd once been discouraged from practicing was now finally allowed to shine at Irving Inn. Seeing the guests' smiles and the joyful faces of the train staff filled my heart like nothing else had before. It was no exaggeration to say that these days were some of the most fulfilling I'd ever experienced. As 1 month, then 2 months passed, and as the tourist season approached, the reputation of Irving Inn not only returned but soared even higher. Guest feedback poured in, saying, "We were so comforted by your hospitality, and it was the best inn experience. We'll be back." The inn's stellar reputation from before was quick to rebound, faster than I'd anticipated, once we improved staff training and filled our ranks. Sales also steadily recovered, and within just a few months, we achieved the same revenue as last year. On that landmark day, even the usually composed Rebecca was celebrating, embracing Heather and the team in joy. "It's all thanks to you, Samuel. You gave us the strength to keep going. Thank you so much." Heather's tearful gratitude warmed my heart. I was truly glad to have been able to help her. "Being able to work here with all of you has made me so happy, thank you." Struggling to hold back tears, I expressed my gratitude as well. Being able to pursue my ideal of heartfelt service here had truly become an irreplaceable experience in my life. I was endlessly grateful to everyone at Irving Inn for giving me this opportunity. But this wasn't the end. The harassment hadn't stopped entirely yet. Henry was likely still plotting to take over Irving Inn. We couldn't let our guard down. With guests pouring back in, the inn was lively and bustling once again. That afternoon, the gathering that had reserved the banquet hall came to an end. With something I needed to confirm with Rebecca, I headed over to the banquet hall where she was attending to guests. Then it happened. "Hey! Where's Rebecca?" A man, accompanied by a group of large men in black suits, shouted loudly at the front desk staff. Thinking it might be trouble, I quickly rushed to the front desk. "Oh, Samuel. This man here." The staff at the front desk, noticing me approaching, gave me a troubled look, silently pleading for my help. "Is there something I can help you with, sir?" As I spoke up, the man turned to face me. I recognized that face. "Henry. Ha! Who the hell are you?" It seemed he didn't recognize me. There he stood, Henry, with his greasy, smug face. "Well, never mind. Hey you, go fetch Rebecca. If you tell her I'm here, she'll come running." He gives orders with a condescendingly polite attitude. That demeanor remained as thoroughly unpleasant as ever. Rebecca is currently attending to guests and cannot step away. If you have any business, I'd be happy to hear it in her stead. There were other guests present in the lobby. No matter how unpleasant this got, I maintained a polite demeanor. What did you say? There's no guest here more important than me. Get her here right now. Henry, clearly displeased with my response, began shouting angrily. Other guests nearby started to stir, wondering what was going on. Sir, please keep your voice down, it's disturbing the other guests. Shut up. Are you trying to give me orders? Just because a few more customers came back, you think you're something special. If I really wanted to, I could crush this inn in no time. Henry laughed as he said this, and the men behind him stepped forward toward me. Like Henry, they wore smirks on their faces, cracking their knuckles as they approached. Were they really planning on causing a scene here, in public? This seemed foolish beyond belief. I couldn't help but sigh. You? Just as Henry's anger peaked, a firm voice called out, "What's going on here?" Rebecca approached us. Seeing her, Henry's face twisted into a sly grin as he turned to confront her. So you finally showed up. Ignoring all my calls lately, huh? I had to come down here myself. Now hand over those property deeds. Since his last visit, Rebecca had ignored Henry's calls and managed to thwart his harassment attempts. It seemed his patience had finally run out. To show up on this day of all days, perhaps Henry's luck had run dry. Rebecca responded, unfazed, with a resolute tone. Henry, as I've told you many times before, we have no intention of giving this land, which our family has protected for generations, to someone like you. And as my employee already mentioned, creating a scene here disturbs our guests. Kindly leave and do not come back. You, acting all high and mighty just because I've been playing nice. Consider yourself warned. I'll use force if I have to. With that, Henry's men stepped forward. Despite being faced with men far larger than herself, Rebecca held her ground, her gaze steady and unflinching. In that tense atmosphere, a calm, almost gentle voice suddenly broke through. Well, what a ruckus this is. All eyes turned toward the voice. Henry was the first to react. Mr. Sanders, an elderly man with a distinguished face and a well-kept beard, stood beside Rebecca. Though his tone was mild, his presence was commanding. Mr. Sanders was a powerful figure in the community. The chairman of a major construction firm responsible for most of the area's infrastructure projects. Even Henry, with his ambitions in resort development, clearly knew who he was. Ah, Henry, was it? I hear you're looking to enter the local tourism business. My associates have mentioned as much. Taking this as encouragement, Henry launched into a lengthy, self-praising explanation of his development plans. Once he finished, Mr. Sanders stroked his beard thoughtfully before responding. But you see, I've been a fan of the Irving Inn for many years, since the days of Rebecca's grandfather. I can't support a plan that would destroy such a fine establishment. Isn't that right, gentlemen? At his words, several others stepped forward. Seeing them, Henry's face turned pale. These were prominent figures from the local community. Today, coincidentally, the banquet hall was hosting a gathering of many influential people from the town. With Irving Inn's improved reputation, they had requested to rent out the banquet hall for their event. Henry, we heard every word you shouted earlier. Rumors have reached us, but it's something else to witness such underhanded tactics firsthand. Don't you think? Though Mr. Sanders had retired from active work over a decade ago, his former strength as a leader who once commanded a group of resilient men could still be felt in his every word and presence. Caught by Mr. Sanders' piercing gaze, Henry began to tremble uncontrollably. Seeing this, Mr. Sanders chuckled softly, then turned his gaze toward Rebecca. Rebecca met his gaze, nodded, and stepped forward to confront Henry. "Henry, I've already discussed everything you've done here with these gentlemen. And not just on our behalf. Others in the area have also suffered your company's harassment. Even knowing this, do you still insist on taking our land?" In response to Rebecca's words, the assembled local leaders nodded, each staring at Henry with unyielding eyes. Unable to withstand the pressure, Henry let out a pathetic squeal, eek, and fled outside. A few days later, with help from Mr. Sanders and other allies, Henry's various misdeeds came to light. Just as we had suspected, all the harassment, complaints, and sudden cancellations that targeted Irving Inn and nearby businesses had been orchestrated by people hired by Henry. What's more, he had collaborated with certain members of the local tourism association and staffing agencies, using dirty tactics to apply pressure on anyone who didn't support his plans. Several former employees who had acted suspiciously at the inn were also planted by Henry, deliberately causing issues to damage our reputation. All of them ended up dealing with the police, and Henry's grand tourism plan was officially terminated. Some of the businesses that had been forced to close or relocate because of Henry were able to return. Though the scandal attracted media attention and stirred up the town, things eventually settled down, and a new, thoughtfully revised tourism development plan began to take shape. Fortunately, with the Irving Inn having regained its former popularity, we were chosen to lead this new initiative, and the team's morale soared. As for me, Samuel, the guests in the Sakura room are asking for you. Understood. I'll be there right away. I had initially planned to leave after Henry's issue was resolved, but everyone at the inn had convinced me to stay. So I continued working here at Irving Inn. Heather, too, had begun her full training as a future innkeeper, now standing proudly alongside Rebecca as the face of the inn. And as for us, with Rebecca's blessing, Heather and I began a relationship with marriage in mind. Now, I often find myself being teased as the young master, but getting to see the smile that first captivated me up close fills me with happiness. Samuel, keep up the great work. Heather, or rather, the young innkeeper. The day I left my former job, thinking of Irving Inn was purely by chance. Thanks to that, I found not only the perfect place to work but also a beloved fiancé. Living true to one's principles is never easy. But knowing that I was able to help someone made all those challenging days worth it. From now on, I'll continue to uphold my belief in heartfelt service and support her by her side.